Thank you all so much for joining. We are so excited to have Scott and Chris give us a presentation today. So please, thank you. Hold all your questions till the end. There will be a little bit of time for Q&A, and I'll hand it over.
Thank you very much, and thank you to New Relic for asking Scott and I to present today. We're both thrilled to be here. Thank you to everybody who's chosen to spend their time with us this afternoon. Appreciate you coming out. So my name's Chris Gunderson. I'm a senior manager on the McDonald's Architecture Services team, and my main job for McDonald's is to help make sure that our customers can order cheeseburgers from their smartphones in a way that's most cost efficient to McDonald's. So that's really what it boils down to. And I'm here with my good friend Scott Farnham. Scott is our performance and reliability architect, and he's got a wide breadth of experience at McDonald's and gets pulled into things well beyond performance and reliability. So before I even jump into it, why do Scott and I care about New Relic? And there's a few things. So the two of us co-own the McDonald's New Relic contracts. We play a role at McDonald's of helping other application teams adopt New Relics. That's a piece of it. And in our day jobs, I'm running a FinOps function for our digital tech stack, and I'll describe what that is in a second. And Scott works on performance and reliability. So I have come up with, between Scott and I, we've come up with some unique ways of using New Relic because of what we do in our day jobs. And New Relic actually told us that those were unique use cases. They were a little innovative and asked us to share those with you today. So we're excited to be here, and I hope this is a good use of your time. So Scott and I are going to do a demo towards the end of the session today, and before we do that, we wanted to give a little deeper dive into three things. Number one, the McDonald's business and our global scale. Number two, the McDonald's technology. So what does technology mean at McDonald's, and how are we using New Relic with our technology today? And third, we're going to dive deeper into what the McDonald's digital business is and what our digital technology is. Most of what Scott and I do is actually framed around the digital part of the McDonald's business. We want to set up our demo first with a little bit of context. From there, we're going to go into our two unique New Relic use cases. The first is how we're using New Relic to measure cost and context, and the second is how we are using New Relic to improve our customer experience by monitoring our customer mobile sessions and replaying them with something that we call Telemetry 360. So with that said, I want to start with a quick poll. So who in the room has heard of McDonald's? So who knows that McDonald's has a mobile app? So maybe 80% of the room or so, 80 to 90%. And who within the last week has consumed a beverage or food product from McDonald's? Okay. All right. I think we're being honest. That's good, because McDonald's actually serves 70 million customers a day across the globe, and that's almost 1% of the world's population. So if I saw 1% or less of the room raising their hand, then I would question if everyone was being honest or not. But we're big, right? We're 39,000 restaurants across 119 countries. And when I first joined McDonald's in 2009, my first state orientation, I was blown away by metrics like this when they told us kind of the grand scale of McDonald's. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that to kind of put the rest of this into context.
However, there are some consequences.
With that said, what does technology mean at McDonald's? And the way I'm going to describe this is breaking it into three different domains: a digital domain, a restaurant domain, and an enterprise domain. On the digital side, what that refers to is our customer-facing front-end channels and the back-end systems that enable those experiences. So that's mostly our mobile app. We have a mobile app that we call our Global Mobile Application, or GMA. You may hear Scott or I use the term GMA, and if we say that, we're talking about our mobile app. As far as our New Relic implementation goes, it's all the basic things that, basic features that everybody's using: infrastructure, APM, alerting, dashboards, mobile, and then of course we have our two unique ways of using it to measure cloud cost and to measure our customer experience. We have that instrumented on our whole back end, which includes everything behind our front end channels. So our API gateway, microservices, Lambda functions, non-containerized apps, the data layer, and of course all the underlying infrastructure. On the restaurant side, that includes our point of sale technology, our drive-through technology, back office, and really everything that's running in the kitchens from a tech standpoint to help kitchen operations. We are in an early New Relic phase with our restaurant technology. We have a small handful of restaurants where we are running a POC currently this year, and depending on how that goes, we may be expanding our New Relic footprint on a much broader scale, potentially next year. From an enterprise standpoint, this is a lot of the stuff that McDonald's has in place to run the business. So it includes business apps, things like McDonald's.com, our corporate intranet, our data and analytics, that's a big piece. And then there's a bunch of different infrastructure things we have in place. We are a consumer of all three cloud providers across the board at McDonald's, so AWS, Azure, and GCP, and we have New Relic instrumented kind of all over the place when it comes to our enterprise implementation. So I mentioned in the keynote today that we currently have about 170 New Relic sub-accounts. So our sub-accounts are largely framed around applications. So every application, generally speaking, has its own sub-account. And our implementation is actually blown up within the last couple of years, really in that third category, in that enterprise category. So a lot going on there.
Less productivity, stifles innovation, and I think in best case scenario.
Today what we're going to talk about is our digital tech stack.
Interface with teams where there's open.
And the markets in scope of digital include 5 of our key markets: US, Canada, UK, Germany, and Australia. So I mentioned earlier we have 119 countries, 39,000 restaurants. These 5 countries make up, as of today, 18,708 restaurants, which is about 50% of our total restaurant base. Within those 5 markets, we're doing millions of mobile orders per day. I'm not allowed to say how many, but I can say millions. And again, those are 5 key markets where we have GMA deployed today. Looking ahead, I think a year from now, we'd probably hopefully be saying that GMA is deployed beyond those 5 markets. And I think if we talk about mobile guest counts, I said millions. If we put that into context, like with back-end transactions, we're talking like 300,000 to 400,000 RPMs on average, if we look at all 5 markets combined. And in terms of technology, what we're talking about here, again, it's our customer-facing mobile app and all of the back-end technology that enables that experience.
Probably heard in this conference.
So I'm going to get deeper into that technology in the next couple of slides. Now, I sincerely hope that all of you use our mobile app. I saw maybe 50% of the room raise their hands. And if you're not using it, you're missing out on free food. So there is an incentive to use our app. I myself use it all the time as a McDonald's customer. And there's 3 basic things you can do on it. You can order food in the form of pickup or delivery. You can receive and redeem offers. And you can participate in the My McDonald's loyalty program. In being a restaurant business, we have a couple of challenges, right? We have peaks throughout the day, one at breakfast, one at lunch. And then we have really big peaks during promotions. So in McDonald's context, things like National Egg McMuffin Day, National Ice Cream Day, those are probably the 2 biggest promotions that we run that drive a ton of traffic through our mobile app and ultimately to our back end. So those things present some unique challenges to being a restaurant business that is operating at the scale of McDonald's. And there's 2 sort of conflicting things that come into play here. The first is cost, and the second is customer experience. So we want to make sure that our back end is architected in a way that it's affordable And then it's also meeting the needs of our customers and making sure that they have a good experience when they're using the app, right? So if we think about what that means, right? Our back end can't be just scaled out all the time because that would be cost prohibitive. And if it's not auto-scaling correctly during peak times, that's going to mean a bad experience. So Scott and I put our heads together to try to solve those things, and New Relic has been a really useful tool along the way.
While still making sure that the enforcement of their policies is being met and doing so.
So this gets a little bit deeper into the actual technology. And as I previously mentioned, you can order food, receive and redeem offers, and participate in our loyalty program. So those three basic pieces of functionality imply that you're authenticating, right? You have a customer profile set up, you're paying, right? There's other things happening behind the scenes in order just to use our app. So if we shift our attention to the diagram on the right side, I wanted to walk through that a little bit. So on the top, you can see our front-end channels. And again, the main one today is our mobile app. We have some what we call 3POs or third-party ordering providers. Those are things like Uber Eats and DoorDash. Requests are coming in through, those are generating API requests coming in through our API gateway and then hitting our application layer. So we've got containerized apps running on a Kubernetes cluster. We've got non-containerized apps. We've got Lambda functions. And then, of course, behind that, we have our data layer. And this diagram shows the AWS technology that we are using in our data layer. On the sides, we have integrations with other systems, some back-end data systems, as well as some third parties that are part of our digital stack as well. So the consistent use of our app is generating events that are flowing both north and south and east and west out of our stack, and all those things imply AWS consumption. So I don't know if I said this earlier, but I mentioned we use all three providers to some extent at McDonald's, but within the context of digital, we're 100% on AWS. So everything that I'm going to be talking about today is in the context of AWS Cloud Native Services.
Application layer, that an actual interface product that developers can consume and use on a day-to-day basis within their organizations. And we're going to talk a lot about developer flow state and developer experience.
So taking what we saw in the last slide just a step further to look at the infrastructure, I wanted to talk through a basic example of using our mobile app.
That we've set up is this concept of blueprints. This idea
So if you were to pick up the app, you would launch it, log in, you might browse your offers, browse your deals, right? And potentially place an order, right? So in that basic experience, our back-end service has enabled you to securely log in, to find the restaurant that's closest to you, to present you with the menu at the restaurant that's closest to you, the prices for that menu, right? And allow you to place an order directly at that restaurant that's nearest to you. And in the course of that seemingly simple experience, what's happening behind the scenes is API requests are being generated. They're passing through our API gateway. We've got messages going through our SQS queues. We've got data being read from an RDS. We've got reads and writes happening with Dynamo databases. Depending on the time of day, again, we've got containerized microservices. Our EC2 nodes could be scaling in or scaling out if it's a peak time or we're coming off of a peak time. We've got Lambda functions at play that are responding to some of those API requests. And just a wide variety of AWS services are running just to enable that basic end user experience. So that, again, presents some unique challenges to us because when our marketing partners come up with a promotion that they want to run, Scott and I are thinking about, okay, how is the stack going to scale? Scott wants to make sure that the customers have a good experience. I want to make sure that the promotion that we run makes financial sense from a tech perspective. To sum all that up, the problem statement from a cost standpoint is the rapid evolution of the McDonald's digital tech stack combined with the continuous growth of the McDonald's digital business has led to a need for automated real-time measurement of our digital run costs. Our goals with that are to automate measurement of digital run cost, enable predictability of run cost as our tech scales for promotions, guest count growth, and or deployment to new markets, provide product level visibility to product owners, and formally introduce affordability as a non-functional requirement for all new system features. I wanted to provide a little bit more context on that third goal where I say provide product level cost visibility to product owners. So the way we organize our engineering teams is around use cases. So we have an offers team, orders team, an accounts team, right? They're kind of framed around those key use cases. And what we want to be able to do is set those teams up with the tools that they need to not only monitor the performance of their back end, but also monitor the cost of it and make sure that they are building things in a cost-efficient way.
If they're pulling in secrets, all these types of things, it's all built.
So with that, I'm going to get into the demo.
But developers have
I know everybody's sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for the New Relic demo piece here, so wait no more.
another example of this as a developer is working.
So here we go. The first thing that
all previous runs.
we have to do in order to leverage New Relic for measuring our cloud run cost is produce workloads.
So as a developer,
So I don't know if everybody in the room is using workloads, but it's I think a relatively new New Relic feature within the last 12 to 18 months or so. And what we've done is built workloads around each of our digital products. So a workload is basically a carve out of entities that you want to see in a single view. So what we've done is built workloads again for each of our products. We have an offers workload, an orders workload, an accounts workload, and so on.
Here's the way on average we make dashboards for customers, or here's the way our services work with
And this screen just shows the collection of workloads that I've built in New Relic for our cost measurement purposes. So you can see I've named them all with the term FinOps for financial operations, along with their respective product names.
I can create an HTTP endpoint, which is behind my company's infrastructure.
Now, how to create a workload? There's actually two ways to do this. You can create a workload using the New Relic UI and the filtering capability that comes natively in the New Relic UI. And what I found is I encountered some limitations in trying to do that. And I will be the first person to admit that I'm not like the greatest NERCL expert that exists. But I did encounter some challenges with the New Relic UI. However, I then discovered New Relic's GraphQL API and used the graphical interface to write queries that produced these workloads. So this is just a quick example of a GraphQL set of queries that I wrote to produce a workload for, which one is this? For the offers capability, right? And this is what it looks like. So the workload has been created.
Hard coding configuration into my code or something like that.
And it includes, as you can see, a bunch of different AWS services. So I think the first part of my query was domain equals infrastructure, which means it's going to pull in all of our AWS infrastructure resources specific to that product. And this, of course, implies that as a prerequisite, we went through a tagging cleanup exercise in 2020. We looked at the data model we were using for tagging all of our AWS services and went through a cleanup effort a couple years ago. And that really enabled us to do this 2 years later. But so you can see all the AWS services that are being pulled into this workload for this particular product.
Into the environments themselves, into the containers themselves. So as a developer, I can say the back-end team or this particular customer or these 6 people can access this program, whether that's an endpoint or whether that's some sort of container that they're running. Or some sort
Now,
of
there is a
API, and that is
nerd pack in New Relic called Cloud Optimize, and that is the tool that we are using to actually measure cloud run costs. So this is going to show you how to navigate to that. Let me back up a little bit. So I have it in my favorites. I don't know if everybody has Cloud Optimize installed in their accounts or not, but if you don't, you could, of course, talk to your New Relic team to get it installed. But again, it's called Cloud Optimize, so I'm going to just kind of go through the basic navigation to launch it.
And I want to now promote that into a staging environment.
And I'll pause there and describe how this works. So your first step to using Cloud Optimize is to, again, create a workload of the entities that you want to optimize, which we did.
If there's some sort of CI/CD flow that's supposed
Your
to
next
happen,
step is to
connected into
define a
so if I'm using my code
a collection of workloads that you want to measure cost for. So you could actually choose to select multiple workloads that you want to measure cost for, like in a single cost measurement execution. So in this case, I'm only going to select one workload for the orders capability, and I'm going to call that, what did I call this here?
Wants them to be doing in a standardized way, but unblocking that communication.
Orders released to cost measurement.
So how do you build an IDP? There are a few different options. So the first one is you can build it entirely.
Hit create, and then what that does is it puts that collection of workloads, it loads it into Cloud Optimize, and from there we can then run that collection of workloads through the cost optimized calculators. In this case, I selected May 5th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We ran a performance test during that time. So what I wanted to do is measure the cost of our AWS backend during that time frame.
So there are some really compelling platforms that have come out, such as Spotify's Backstage, that help do this. So mixing that with something like Kubernetes and a deployment system, you can actually cobble together through open source an IDP system and build and maintain it. And there's more coming out every day around that. Finally, IDP platforms such as Wastegraph.
Why can't I get there? We go.
Emerging, such as our own, that are focused on bringing
Okay,
this sort of
so the next step is to
platform that
view the results. So the workload has been run, Cloud Optimize has done some calculations. So we will then go to view the results.
There's a complexity crisis for development teams today. Nobody's a full stack engineer anymore, and the deep specialization has so many benefits and has led to so much.
And what's really cool here is every time you run a collection of workloads through Cloud Optimize, the Cloud Optimize app saves the results. So this particular use case is very useful for a scenario where you're building a new release and you want to compare the cost of running your product during point A, code, make some changes, whatever you're going to do, run that same workload through the Cloud Optimize again and measure the cost a second time. You can then compare the cost of running your product based on changes that have been made. So like we've seen things in McDonald's, like some of our APIs might become more chatty depending on business requirements. So like a couple of examples are, one of our markets wanted the ability for our customers' loyalty points to like refresh instantly after a transaction. So that implied that a set of like 10 APIs were going to be called, I can't even tell you how many more times, like 10x as many times, just to be able to refresh loyalty points instantaneously. So at the time, we didn't have any tools available to be able to say, this is a bad idea because it's going to cost you X. We knew it was a bad idea because we knew there was a lot more traffic coming through, but we didn't have any tools in place to measure that quickly. And with Cloud Optimize, we can do that automatically. And we want to get it to a point where it's not me or Scott or somebody in the architecture team that's thinking about that, but it's a developer who has the tools at his fingertips to think about those things and measure those things in the course of developing. So I'm going to select a time here. That was the 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. performance test. And we can see that during that 2-hour time frame, our cost to run that particular capability was $401.55. And that is the sum of all of these AWS services that you see. So we saw, let me back it up a little bit. SQS, ELB, ALB, Elasticache, Lambda functions, API gateway, hosts, and then the Kubernetes cluster is going to show all the hosts that have Kubernetes containers in them, and we'll get into that in a second. And then what's happening is here, it's running a calculation based on throughput and the AWS publicly published on-demand rates. So Cloud Optimize is refreshing the price list. I think it's every 12 hours. So we have the confidence to know that the latest AWS pricing is always at play when we're running calculations. And we don't have to take out Excel spreadsheets to measure anything. So in this case, we've got the SQSQ entity expanded, and we can see exactly how many messages pass through each of these queues. what the message price was, and then what the total was for that particular queue. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see our total SQS cost during that time frame. Not much to see there. API Gateway is another interesting one because it's so variable with its pricing model. So it's mainly priced out on a per API call basis. You can see number of API calls, cost per call, and a total. And where this gets really valuable for us, because we have most of our apps containerized, is we can now see costs down to the container level. So with a lot of the AWS or cloud measurement tools that are out there today, they stop short of showing you what your costs are down to the container level. So our stack is at a point with a microservices architecture where seeing just EC2 node costs is fairly meaningless, right? We need to know what containers are consuming what and how we can better optimize our cluster and our containers to then eventually optimize the underlying EC2 nodes. So for every one of these line items here, these are EC2 hosts, and then we can click into the containers that are running on each one of those. So I will click into one container. Actually, that was not one container. This is a list of containers that were on that host. So here we can see every row is a container, what the CPU consumption was, memory consumption, and then a cost estimate based off of that. So we're looking at how much CPU was used, how much memory was used, and what was the underlying cost of that EC2 node, and assigning a percentage of that cost to each container based on their resource consumption. And this, again, is where it gets really valuable because it gets granular enough that our application teams can actually take action with it. So like nothing against AWS, right? But the Cost Explorer is a tool out there that I think everybody's familiar with, but it doesn't get you granular enough information to really do a whole lot with. And even things like Dynamo tables, right? We can measure cost around table names. I don't think you can do that with the Cost Explorer today.
Our focus has primarily been about creating the quality of environments and the day-to-day workflow for a developer who's actively developing them.
The other cool thing that you can do, which I can't put on the big screen, but depending on how you're using AWS tagging, you can click this filter tags button, and then it will show a menu of all your AWS tag keys and values, and you can select things and filter things based on your AWS tagging. So, for example, we have a tag called environment type. If I wanted to select production, non-production, performance, dev, or whatever, I can select an exact environment type so that I can see cost specifically for what I want to see it for.
Couple parts to that question, so it's really great. One, I think the first part of what you said is very common, right? This is something a lot of companies are trying to do, and they're hard to build and maintain, right? Particularly when technologies are constant.
So what are the use cases, and what's the value add here? And really, I think it's three things, at least in the context of McDonald's. For developers, going back to the example that I gave earlier, I can shift measurement of my product run cost left in my development cycles. So if I have some requirements that I'm coding against, I can do my coding, capture a cost measurement, and compare it against what my cost was prior to making those changes. I think that's really powerful because it allows us to capture cost issues on a much smaller scale, much earlier on in the cycle. So we can get ahead of those things before we push something out to production. Again, millions of orders a day, hundreds of thousands of RPMs per minute, right? It helps us get ahead of cost issues. As a McDonald's market, when we come up with ideas of promotions that we want to run, we can measure the cost of running the promotion against the amount of revenue that we think we're going to produce as a result of running the promotion. And as a tech leader, I can make decisions that balance cost with speed, performance, quality, and availability. So again, Scott and I are part of the McDonald's architecture team, and this is the piece that really resonates with us, right? Because you can't look at cost in a silo. You have to look at it relative to other KPIs that you're measuring. And for us, that's the ilities. That's where our team is concerned. So we're always looking at things in terms of if we want availability, if we want 3 nines or 4 nines, what's the extra cost to get there? And having all of that data in New Relic allows us to like very quickly assess how adding another server or adding more hardware, whatever this decision is, how does that move the needle across the board in all of our key metrics? And I want to just show some other dashboards that we have out there that are related to cost. Throughput is huge for us. So I talked about back-end RPMs, and it's important to look at cost in context of throughput, right? So what is our cost per back-end RPM or per 1,000 RPMs, right? What is our cost per API call? What is the data received by our end user devices? That tells us a lot about our data transfer out cost, right? And it tells us a lot about traffic going over our CDN and through our WAF and DDoS. All things that are very easy to measure with New Relic. And as a next step with this, we have a vision of taking error budgets a step further and relating error budgets to cost. So one of the first things I did on the team that I'm on now was implemented some SRE practices and error budgets a few years ago. And it's the 3 golden signals that everybody's thinking about: throughput, latency, and error rates. But let's take that a step further and measure those things with dollars and cents in the picture too, so we can say if we want to go from having an error budget of 0.05% to 0.03%, what is that going to do to cost? And New Relic is, again, it has all of this data in there that when you look at it holistically, put it into context, it's very powerful. And that is it for my piece, so I'm going to hand it off to Scott.
So first off, I'm not as fancy as Chris with the the hanger on there, so I'll be talking with one hand only today. Secondly, I did somehow get a cold between yesterday and today, so heads up if anyone comes close. Consider yourself forewarned right after this. One of the main challenges we have with CX is that there are some tools. Actually, there are lots of great tools out there for capturing what's happening on like a website. And we actually saw some of those bits in the keynote presentation today. But when it comes to mobile app, you have to be cautious of how many SDKs you put into your app. You need to be concerned about how much data you're sending out from the app. And frankly, who's going to interpret millions of clients and what they're happening? You know, like, does that happen to a market level or a corporate level? So we needed to build ways to go from 0 to 100, and that's what I intend to do today, is show you guys how we went from 0 to 100, starting out with what is basically available out of the box today from New Relic, and then what we ended up with, which we call Telemetry 360. All right, so very quickly, some key points here. We need to get to fast track issue identification. One of the main problems I had is that a VP would have a problem, and they have a direct line to my boss. And they would say, someone needs to go out and figure out why this happened, right? And if you can't come back with a response very quickly, it's then statements like, well, maybe you're not monitoring well enough, or maybe your teams aren't prioritized on fixing things. Statements that are painful, but not really accurate. So we need to solve that time gap. We need to come back down to, if a particular customer has an issue, how do we identify who had that issue, when they had that issue, what caused that issue, all that stuff. So we can come back really quickly to those VPs and tell them. So that's like really the inspiration for all of this. But all of our customers are actually benefiting, right? And I'm going to dive right into that. I'm not going to read anything on the slides here because it's all up there and you guys can catch it all later. But you know, the big thing is you know, in the first couple of years of being live, we went back and forth with our mobile teams who said, we can't reproduce, we can't reproduce, we can't reproduce. They weren't on the right iOS version or they weren't on the right app version or whatever. We needed to eliminate that 100% and get it down to precise. And this is really before mobile logs were generally available. So now, oh, did you put it on the slide, Chris? Yeah. Cool. Oh, no. I got to put it in presentation mode. it will be a true live demo here. Did it work? I got an error. All right, actually hold that for a second. I forgot. It's been so long since I've security first, everyone. Luckily, I still remember my password.
Yeah, get out of the PowerPoint. Get out of the
Oh, how do I do that? All right, cool. Sorry. Co-joining, maybe I should practice a little bit more. Well, here's where we started, right? For the first part, you get your aggregate values across all your customers. And what we've done is we've basically built a filter down dashboard so that if errors are occurring, the first question is, does the customer actually see the errors, which you'll see down here, errors by user message. And then let's just say, okay, I want to know more about this error message. What? Great, when New Relic doesn't do what I want it to do. Let me try this one again. Oh man, why is it not working? I'll try one more time. That is different. Okay, well, nope. I'm going to talk to it because I can't show you the filter down. Basically, we can take an error that occurs on a particular message and then tie that right to an API or a particular iOS version or a particular screen in the app, whatever that is, right? We can bring that right to you from that point of view, right? And that is super powerful, but it still doesn't quite get us all the way to what happened to this particular customer on this journey. It just tells you, hey, a lot of customers are having this error. Apparently it's 10.5 million customers are having an error on favorites, most likely because customers aren't using favorites in our app today. And they have no favorites, so they return an error saying favorites not found. Not really a big business problem, as you can see by our actual error messages shown to customers being, in the 100,000 case over the last week. So kind of give you an idea. And then from there, we go into, I'm going to step back out here, control and click. A tool that we built, and so here's the story on this one, right? In March of 2020, before the pandemic hit, we did a free Egg McMuffin day. And the business had no idea how that would impact or what would occur, right? They give you projections, and for every promotion, they always give you big projections, but if there's costs associated to it, customers actually don't react so heavily to it. But when it's free, it's the absurdity of it, right? It's free. Everyone who doesn't ever eat it will come and get it because it's free. And actually, there's been some studies on this. They did a study out of University in California where they had a 1 cent Hershey Kiss versus a 13-cent Lindt truffle, right? Clearly a premium chocolate, right? And what happened in that case is when they did the preferences and did the survey, 36% of the customers would pay 13 cents for the Lindt truffle, and only 8% would pay for the 1 cent Hershey Kiss. The second the Hershey Kiss went from 1 cent to 0, 40% of the customers would pick up the free Hershey Kiss, and 8% would effectively pay for the truffle. So kind of give you an idea, it changes the dynamics of things. So when you're planning a free promotion, if that's in your business model, be warned, it can blow up in your faces. And to that point, what happened after that was really interesting, right? So we planned this big promotion. We get all the teams in at like 4 in the morning because breakfast starts at 5:30 on the East Coast. We're in Central Time. And all the VPs from the US market are there as well. And they're all there to see how this promotion runs. They've done tons of marketing on it, so on and so forth. and shortly after 7 a.m., the president of McDonald's USA at the time reaches out and says his friend did not get his free Egg McMuffin. What are you doing about it? Okay, well, here's that time crunch, right? In this person's mind at the moment, this whole promotion is a total failure, despite there being like, over 2 million plus redemptions by that time already. So, hey, we have to solve this. So what do? We take that person's information, we drop it in here, and let me kind of show you what an example is. Sit down the mic for a second. All right, so this is actually my device, right? And we've turned this over to our help desk. And that helps with a lot of ways, right? You can pull in that information. By the way, for security purposes, we actually don't store the customer's email in New Relic at all. So we have an algorithm in there to convert it and store it using one-way hash so that no one can look in New Relic and find anything about any customer unless you have something from the customer, right? Then on top of that, we wanted to know what kind of error messages did this customer have. So I opened this up earlier today. I chose a location in Vegas, and then I chose a location in Hawaii, and the deals didn't refresh, and of course the deals for Vegas don't work in Hawaii, and so I got an error message saying, this deal is not supported at this restaurant. So you can see kind of what's happening. Further, for our customer service desk, you'll see everything's not populated here, but we are able to tell the customer service team they're on an iPhone, it's XR, they're on Wi-Fi, it's not a cellular connection. Any data attributes that you normally would get from mobile requests are then captured there. So they don't have to say, who are you? Where are you? What store were you at? We have all that information, very, very quickly. But most importantly, coming back to my VP story, that VP's friend was seeing an error message on the screen saying, you have disabled location services. Since not every restaurant is opted into doing offers, if you turn off location services, we can't show you deals. And so every time this individual tried to go to his deals page, it said, you have not turned on location services. So then I get to go back and say 5 minutes later, in 7:10, your friend has disabled location services, and it's showing on his screen over and over and over that he needs to take this action to see his free Big Mac offer. Please have a discussion with your friend about it. I could hear the yelling from because we were in these big conference rooms, and I could hear the yelling down the hall. I mean, he was irate. I don't know what happened to their friendship, but the point is we're able to solve problems that quickly so that we can kind of kill the noise. It's not a big problem. It's something small, something that our customers sometimes do to themselves, sometimes something we do to ourselves. It doesn't, we need to know what is happening for each individual customer and how we get there. So other attributes that we might capture here, all the API calls, and this is filtered to just our main system, but you could collect McDonald's.com or any of our CDN content. Notice if we're having problems delivering particular images. We'll also collect all the devices, your launch times, which I think I've got here, warm launch. I've got one launch recently. We also collect all the breadcrumbs that your customer went through. So they went through, they clicked here, they clicked here, they clicked here. But what's the problem with this view? Anyone care to guess? Anyone? Too many sliders? I was going to say too much text, right? We have a lot of visual folks, especially in customer service, who want to be in that journey with that customer. So that gets us to our latest evolution. For this one, I'm going to do a video because it's just simply easier. All right, so first part of the demo of the video, we're just running through the steps in the app. Customers are choosing the 40 McNuggets, which, by the way, is a lot of McNuggets, but you do get to choose a lot of sauces with it. And we're going to customize the meal a few times. We're going to choose quantities and whatnot. I'm going to let it play here so you kind of get an idea of what the customer experience was. Customized products. So here they went through and said, I want my fries extra salty. I've never actually ordered my fries that way. I actually order them with no salt sometimes, only because I worked in the restaurant, and I've known customers that love it. So here we are, going to recreate that customer experience in Telemetry 360. And it's going to play kind of quick but I'll talk to it in a second. So we do have a filter function, right? And the filter function we're covering off on, do you want to see customer actions, API calls, errors, you name it, right? And then we're going to get down to a visual explanation of what happened. And so you might be saying, hey, what happened? You don't know our business as well, but let me go ahead and explain some of the challenges. We try to calculate nutrition information as you customize your product. But turns out pepper and salt don't have nutritional information. They're an ingredient. And so every time you do that, you get an error saying nutrition information not found. And when you get that error, it comes back to the client, and then the client will show an error message saying nutrition information not available for this. I just got a warning for 10 minutes, but it's okay. With that experience, we're then able to go in and help many more people understand like what's going on for the customer experience. It's not quite video replay, right? But for our developers who get all the error details, all the breadcrumbs, all the steps, it's perfect, and we're able to solve all of our issues very, very quickly. I mean, all the issues that we're currently prioritizing, I'll put it that way. But where are we going with this solution, right? We are going to continue to enhance the UI a little bit. We're trying to make it more smooth around the video, or make it more like a video. And we're trying to further collect more data, like did the customer scroll, did they click too much, did they get frustrated? Basically taking some of the data that analytics is hopefully collecting and capturing it at a monitoring level so we can tie it back to particular errors and issues and experience. All right. Now, some common questions I got on this I'll just leave that up on the screen for now. Why didn't you build all of this in New Relic, right? Well, when it came to the framework, there was some early on decisions about how much are we going to keep in New Relic? Do we need to pull in lots of other data sources? I think we kind of regret it not building it in New Relic, but we built it outside of New Relic, and we pull the data back to New Relic, or pull the data from New Relic to make it all work. So it's one of the early design changes that currently my leadership is grilling me on, but nevertheless, we're here. So that's how it works. Any questions? No? Yeah.
How does scaling work for you guys in AWS when it comes to things that are super specific to regions? So I guess a better question might be, do you have promos that are in one AWS region but only a certain number of restaurants? And if so, how do you manage cost and scale?
So that's a great question. To repeat the question, I'm not sure if his mic was on. How do we manage scaling, for our business? Typically, our promotions are one market at a time, and it's all of that market. We do want to get to that point where we're doing let's say someone wins the next Super Bowl, do a promotion in that, and maybe that would be an issue. We actually did have a few challenges early on with the promotions. They gave away free value meals for a team that won the Stanley Cup, and they were surprised that customers came out in droves to get free value meals. So we do need to think about how we'll do that a little bit differently, but currently marketing will tell us a little bit, and then we make sure that push notifications, emails, things that would drive rapid acceleration of customers coming onto the platform are then at least distributed a little bit so that our auto scale can take time to come in. If they really want to do like they've talked about, what if we did a flash offer that we sent to the entire customer base at 1 minute? That's kind of like Prime Day. You have to pre-warm it and all that good stuff. There's nothing can scale fast enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about savings plans? Are you guys able to incorporate those at all in terms of the cost analysis?
Yeah, savings plans are.
Is yours on? I don't know.
Thought it was on. Savings plans are absolutely in scope. Yeah, we have another organization within Global Technology that manages that AWS relationship. So we have savings plans, RIs, and all those traditional things that you have in place, EDP, right, with AWS.
But do you incorporate that in the New Relic dashboard?
No, we're only using the on-demand rates. Yep.
Cool. Any others? Yeah.
I noticed that there were some suggestions on the Cost Explorer. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I apologize. I should have shown that. The suggestions are all EC2 right-sizing suggestions. So in our case, we're heavily running on a Kubernetes cluster, so those right-sizing suggestions don't always apply to us because we first need to configure how our containers are running in what pods and what pods are more memory bound versus CPU bound. Those things need to be understood and organized first, but those suggestions are just for EC2 right-sizing.
You showed the demo of creating the workloads. You use the GraphQL endpoint to do that. How do you enable engineers to do that kind of themselves, or how did you write automation around that?
I haven't built any automation around building those workloads yet, but that's a really good question. And that's something we need to do next. So, a challenge I have internally within McDonald's is getting our teams to care more about cost, right? And I think once we're at that point, they will figure out a way to build those workloads themselves and not rely on myself or any other New Relic SME to do it for them.
Can I add to that? So our business cycle is a bit different than a lot of other companies. Generally, when the world goes into a recession, we actually do great because folks downsize their purchases and some money grows on trees for that point in time. And then at other times, customers become less thrilled with us, and then we look at optimizing costs. So it's constantly a battle of, am I worried about cost now, or am I not worried about cost tomorrow? You don't know, right? And constantly evolving. So I'm sure that once those costs become a major concern, we'll be able to drive this into teams really easily.
I'm very impressed that you bridged the technology. I know this is analytics. My question to you, answer it as best way you can, is why aren't other companies brave enough to do this?
Is that for the workloads or?
Either or.
So I'll go first. From my point of view, and I don't know how much time I have left. Yeah, I think I have 3 minutes left. But so we started developing all of our telemetry 360 capabilities right, I want to say in 2018, give or take. And at the time, I couldn't find a company that did mobile replay. And so we had a need. We had to solve for tough questions then. So we went off and built it. But now in the marketplace, if you go out there and look, you'll find companies that can give you mobile replay and work mostly within the confines of privacy. Our entire solution works on breadcrumbs and hashed information, so it's completely devoid of anything that would be considered an invasion of privacy, right? And that's great for us, but I'm sure you can go off and buy those commercial solutions. But we, had a need and built it a little sooner than it was ready in the marketplace, right? And then workloads.
Yeah, so are you looking for an answer in the context of the cloud optimize feature functionality, or?
The concept that a lot of times people will say, well, my business analytics are this, how much of things I'm making money versus cost. You said it perfectly. How much is it costing McDonald's to actually have somebody put an order in for a dollar burger, right? You can actually reduce how much it's costing that from that.
Absolutely. I know exactly what that number is. I would probably get in trouble if I said what our cost per transaction is. But that's something that we do measure. And I think what I recognized was the data was in New Relic. New Relic knows exactly how many reads and writes we have on a Dynamo table. They have a full inventory of our servers, how much resource every container is consuming. It's all there, right? It was just how can we take this data to the next level and start using it to measure cost, right?
And we did have, and from time to time, and I have some infrastructure partners here in the room, but we would get a report coming back to us saying, these systems are underutilized. I'm like, they're great for lunchtime. So it was kind of an interesting debate with about what should the resources be because, but yeah, we've had, when you apply a macro level cost savings, it just doesn't work in a model that scales up and down so rapidly, right? So maybe that's another part of the quandrum of there's tools out there to tell you how to save money if your systems are consistently in use 24/7 and whatever. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. I think we finally got the mic picking up some noise. Thank you, Scott and Chris, so much. It's just so helpful to hear candid use cases like your own. We invite you all to give us some feedback. You can do that by taking the survey in the app for this event. Click into the session. You'll see the ability to answer the survey under their names. If you have further technical questions, please stop by the demo booths located in the flow, particularly for logs. If you haven't ingested any data in the last 30 days, there's more information about how you can get a free trial at the demo booth specifically. And if you would like to learn more, please scan that QR code with your smartphone. And yeah, thank you so much for spending your time here.